Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Laura Sawinski, Group Editor for the Crop Life Media Group here at Meister Media Worldwide. Welcome to our third quarter Women in AgTech webinar, Future Ready Farming, Upskilling for Success in Ag Technology. We have three panelists on our program today, and all three are WiAT ambassadors. So thank you to Erin and Patricia and Robin for that. Let me tell you a little bit about each of the ladies on our panel. Erin Hightower is viticulture and precision ag specialist with the National Grape Cooperative Association. Erin is also a certified crop advisor with nearly 20 years in agronomy and agrotechnology, helping growers adopt equipment and technology that drive yield and sustainability. Erin has a Master's of Science from Washington State University, and she now works coast to coast with growers of the National Grape Cooperative, also known as Welch's, connecting innovation to practical results and traceability, and bridging field experience with scalable solutions. Robin Heine is Vice President of Communications at Intellinair. Robin currently leads all communications areas for the agtech startup Intellinair. Prior to joining Intellinair in 2021, Robin served as the Enterprise Change Communications Director for Corteva Agriscience, where she led the change management and communications strategy. Robin also served as the communications lead for the Transformation Office, dedicated to the merger of the Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Prior to that, Robin served as the director of the Global Public Affairs function for Dow AgroSciences. Robin currently serves as treasurer and board member of the Indiana 4-H Foundation. Robin grew up on a fifth-generation diversified family farm in South Dakota. And lastly, Dr. Patricia Stock is head of the Department of Horticulture at Oregon State University. Patricia leads a team of researchers, instructors, and students who focus on the management of plants for human sustenance and lifestyle. The teaching, extension, and research programs within the Department of Horticulture focus on providing scientific information to improve horticulture production systems that contribute to our everyday lives through food and landscapes. Patricia has also served as the Dean of the College of Agriculture at California State University and the director of the School of Animal and Comparative Biomedical Sciences, housed in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at University of Arizona. Thank you, ladies, so much. We have a diverse panel. Y'all have different backgrounds and different experiences with ag tech and certainly with upskilling. So we're gonna, I put together, we have lots to cover, and most importantly, before we get underway, really want to encourage you online. Many of you who have participated in our Women in Ag Tech events before, particularly the webinars, really dig the conversations. Want you guys to jump in, drop some questions in the questions box, some comments. Let us know where you're at with this topic. We'll be keeping an eye on the questions throughout the hour. Want to engage you and invite you in on the conversation as we get going. These are just some of the topics that we're going to cover. But honestly, it's going to be an open panel discussion, and we'll see where the conversation goes. So to get us going, we're kind of going to go down the line here. We'll start off with a question. Erin, I'll start with you. Can you share one skill you've had to develop in the past 5 years that you didn't anticipate needing when you started your career?
And you would expect my answer to be something related to AI or coding or wiring harnesses. Frankly, teaching. I think all of us are working on the cutting edge of things where there's rarely a large audience that knows exactly what we're talking about. So having to take a big step back and learn first patience, which is not a strong suit of mine, but also that learning about how to step through that problem or step through that solution in a way with either growers or non-growers in a comprehensive, easy to follow way. I ended up using a lot of teaching books. Teach Like a Pirate was one that I used. Passion Connection, I think, was the name of the other. And actually following high school teachers on social media and learning from them, because teaching had been an important part of this that I hadn't expected.
Awesome. Robin, kind of same question for you. One skill you've had to develop in the last 5 years that you didn't expect you'd need.
Yeah, great. Well, as a communicator, I am a natural translator, right? And when I started with IntelliNair just 4 years ago, I really didn't have any background in ag tech. You heard my background. I'd been a communicator for many, many years, but the vocabulary was the first thing I had to learn in ag tech. I basically went over the cliff and decided to do something very different, pivot mid-career and decide I'm going to try this ag tech. It was exciting. I knew the customer, I knew agriculture. I just didn't have a good base understanding of ag tech and what was happening in that space. So for me, as a communicator, I had to learn the vocabulary, learn the industry, and then I had to figure out how to be fluent in understanding data and analytics. So therefore, I could take the important information that was coming in and actually make it meaningful for growers or retailers to be able to take forward, make decisions. So for me, it was vocabulary and then becoming data fluent. And by the way, I'm still learning. I still have a lot to learn.
Yeah, no doubt. Patricia?
Yeah, so with me, it's been many different things. At the beginning of my career, if you had asked me if I would lead a group or be an administrator, I would have certainly said no. And so over time, those things grew, and I felt like I was actually well positioned to lead a group based on the experience I had gained over the years. As a scientist, I learned that technology was vital for my growing as a scientist and for, catching up with the speed of where research, goes all the time. So learning new skills and being up to date, that is something that has been constant over, the 3 decades of my career. I would say, like, for example, in the very last 5 years, online teaching. When I learned how to develop a class online, I was not thinking of, trying to do that as a way of, that's the way I'm delivering my classes for the students. When the pandemic came, I was one of the few people actually that had that training, and I was very lucky to be able to transition immediately online and in-person class and be able to connect with the students and reach out. But also, I think it's been a blessing on, learning how to do Zoom, being more aware of the use of apps, and, connecting with the rest of the world. All my colleagues that are around the world, they are, one finger away from me as I hit their phone number in WhatsApp and I connect with them. So that is fascinating and wonderful, and speeds up the work we do significantly in the academic research field.
Yeah. No doubt. COVID was an accelerator, if you will. One maybe we didn't expect at the time to just push a lot of us, myself included, up with that group to, to get online and do the exchanges and communication and the work that we do online. I oftentimes think about the digital journey in the ag space. And in the short 3.5 years that I've been here at Meister, and particularly focused on production ag, so much has changed. And I think even with, not that AI is new, but certainly the last 18 months or so, I think, it's just, it's across everything that we do on the media side, on the agriculture side. How do you all stay current with what's coming? I mean, the speed of change is so fast. And certainly you all are immersed in it in your respective areas, but how do you stay on top of ag, and how do you, for that matter, continue to upskill in your own roles? I'll stay with you, Patricia.
Sure. Yeah, so like I said, in the scientific, educational world, that's something that we are forced, to be current all the time. New technologies happen, and you know, sometimes we need to adopt them, but sometimes we don't. So I think we need to use judgment, you know, to where we jump in, what decisions we make, what will make our work more efficient. I think, you know, one of the advantages of AI is that it really has transformative benefits to everyone. You know, the efficiency of research, as I mentioned before, enhancing learning and teaching, you know, knowing what platforms to use. And, you know, the interesting thing is, and when we learn something that we feel like we are proficient, all of a sudden, you know, we are no longer using this platform. You need to jump into another one. So, as you know, for example, as an administrator, I would say exercise caution with that, because although change is necessary, sometimes, you know, causing too much disruption increases the level of stress of our employees. So we have to really have, you know, a very balancing act, but, you know, at the same time trying to provide access to people, you know, make it inclusive, which is something that I think AI has helped us enormously in allowing people with different backgrounds, with different needs to, you know, be successful.
Yeah, yeah. Robin, you want to weigh in on that? How do you stay current in your
Yeah, I
work?
think it is overwhelming a little bit to see all the information that comes out daily. So you're reading a lot, you know, just newsletters, and you're participating in webinars, and you're just trying to consume information, and then you have to try to decipher what out of that information is actually going to genuinely help you in doing your job. So for me, in my day to day, I'm looking at first off, what makes my life easier, what tools are going to make my job more efficient. For me, specifically, AI writing tools have been a game changer for me. I'm not saying that it's perfect, because we know there's a lot of it's not perfect, and you certainly need to add the human element to anything that you're getting from an AI writing exercise. I look at tools that are going to gain traction with my customer. So if it gives me an advantage to maybe better communicate with my customer or engage with them, you know, certainly that's going to be something I'm going to pay attention to. But it is hard to sift through, I think, all of the new tools that are coming out in just in ag tech. And then there's the marketing world for me. So there's all the marketing tools that are coming out that supposedly should make your life easier, right?
Mhm.
And then there's just the whole ag tech space. So I'm kind of looking at both to help my day job, but then also I support a business that is also looking at technology to make our platform easier, a better way to get insights, faster insights, ways that will help influence decision making at the farm level, for example. So I look at it from both ways. I'm listening to customers to make sure that we are meeting their needs. So I'm always looking, that's sort of always my North Star.
Yeah.
Is where and what is my customer thinking and doing, and what is going to make their life easier. And then I kind of go next, what's going to help me be able to deliver faster and more efficiently.
Yeah. Makes sense. Erin, staying current.
Yeah, no, and everybody's hit a lot of the popular ones, webinars, periodicals. I get a ton of emails every day that some days I might read and some days I might not. LinkedIn, you know, if you surround social media with things that you're actually going to be benefiting from, is also one. Also say follow your curiosities. So, and don't get, there's two issues that I see people get into. Either they don't follow their curiosities because their boss won't pay for them to follow that curiosity, or they don't follow that curiosity because there's no ag based benefit, you know, ag based teaching. So for instance, I got my certified crop advisor against the will of my boss at the time,
Really?
because I wanted to learn from it. And so, haha, joke's on him. And the second one is that, like, about a year ago when I was like, hey, this AI thing is going to be big, I might need to know more about it. I would just went, okay, what are some great classes? And I found a $15 class from the Project of Management Institute, nothing to do with agriculture, right? PMI, I think, is construction. And it taught me more advanced prompting than just like finish this email for me or do the thing or make the picture, like how to chain together prompts. And that was a game changer for me. And all of those to say, if you're curious about it, follow that curiosity, and it may be a dead end, but it's likely you're going to be able to talk about it in a room, at least when somebody's like, well, tell me more about this AI thing, as an example.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking, and so this summer at Tech Hub Live, Jeff Blair, our keynoter, was talking about generative AI as part of his keynote. And at the end, he said, you know, I often get asked, is AI going to take my job? And he said, AI is not going to take your job, but another person that knows AI will take your job. And if we're thinking about upskilling, and you know, whether it's Chat GPT or Claude or any other, um, how important do each of you think that is right now? Like, how proficient does somebody need to be in that right now? And does it sometimes, I mean, you know, I don't know if you've all heard of work slop, where, you know, right, I used AI to write my article, and it's like, well, you know, it's not the best article, so, you know, work slop. So any thoughts on where people need to be with, you know, embracing generative AI and the roles they do as part of their upskilling? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I can answer from the academic world, like, so AI is a, double-edged sword, right? It has good and, and bad things. Like I said, it has really make things more efficient for people, for streamlining, for access and inclusivity. But, at the same time, the question probably is who uses it, right? And what kind of background that person has to use that technology. So I say that I have never used Chat GPT, and but I know my sons have, and they tell me the pros and cons and benefits. But I said, um, you can use it to polish, your skills, in writing, to expand your knowledge, or to make, your paragraphs or your whole writing more coherent. But at the same time, if you don't have the knowledge, that will hurt you, because, like I always tell the students, don't take the shortcut. There are no shortcuts to the road, in the road of success, right? So if you shortcut not learning how to write because you are time to turn in an assignment and you want a good grade, without the learning and acquisition of knowledge, that is a challenge. And that is something that, as an educator, I need to, tell, our students, those tools are great, but use them with caution. Acquire the knowledge, identify, what is a primary source of reference first, what is a secondary, is that information accurate or valid or not? Sometimes when people use ChatGPT, then you ask those questions and they don't know. So it depends on the user, right? The age of the user, the experience of the user, and in the academic world, there are lots of challenges that we still need to figure out in terms of academic integrity. And many students that have been caught using ChatGPT to replace what they should be learning or doing, they face the challenge of, being removed from a class or even from the whole program. It's challenging. And for professionals, for publication as well, many journals now search for, if you use AI technology in the way you publish or wrote your essays. And, if you did, you need to disclose. And if you don't, you are in the hot chair. So,
Yep.
I think AI, when it's used to cover a weakness of your skill set, like Patricia was talking about, that's where you need to go to your basics. You cannot have ChatGPT cover your basics, which is the basics of knowing geospatial data, the basics of statistics, the basics of writing. If you get your writing close and you have something like dyslexia, ChatGPT will fix those kinds of mistakes, but they won't fix the basic knowledge of agriculture and the basic knowledge of technology.
Yeah, good point. Robin, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. If not, I've got a question for you, so. the floor is
Yeah,
yours.
no, I would just add, I think it's important to have an understanding of what it is, how it works, where it can be useful. I mean, I would say in that particular space, if you're a little bit nervous about your job, just start prompting it to understand how it can be used, like plan a travel trip or something along that line, to sort of just have a base understanding about how to do AI prompting. I took a certification because I didn't know what I was doing, right? And I was so grateful to have that certification, kind of a little bit like Erin did. I just needed to, I could see, other parts of our company was using AI. I needed to get on that bandwagon, but I also knew others were in ag as well. And I wanted to be able to be able to engage in that conversation a bit. So
Yeah.
I do think it's important to have a base understanding. It's not going to be the answer, right? And it isn't going to replace human.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, just in my work and my colleagues here at the company, we've talked a lot about it, where it fits, when we should use it, how best to use it. And then free resources out there, there's some fantastic stuff. So, that's one thing. And I will say, and I've played and compared, Chat GPT versus Claude, for instance, for my work. And I just can't say enough, the better you get at prompting, I mean, it all comes down to that. I mean, the power that, it's right behind the prompt. You need to get that prompt right or come back with the, I've seen it over and over again. And honestly, in my humble experience, even the last 3 months, both of the platforms, again, I'm kind of comparing them side by side right now. They both have become so much better, even in just a short time. It's almost astounding. So I know I was gonna, maybe ask you guys about, what to invest in and stuff. And I guess I'll try to answer that myself. I have to say, the number, again, of free resources and webinars out there, are a great start. I actually subscribe to Masterclass, and they have a lot that their portfolio now of masterclasses on there are awesome. So,
Well, and if I can interject,
Yep.
what should we spend time in? If you're not sure you're getting ready to change careers paths like Robin did, take
Yep.
the job you really kind of want, take a job description, copy and paste it, and compare it to your resume, either by hand or by AI, and it will tell you you would not get this job, or you need to work on these things. As somebody who recently lost their job, or I lost my job about a year ago and found this wonderful one. It was because I was going through and fine tooth combing with my resume to see what wasn't standing out. So, if you know where you want to go, and you take your resume and you start looking at it, you're going to get your driving directions basically to get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good advice. I'll have to enshrine that somewhere on the shifting gears just a little bit. Erin, I'll stick with you. An example of a technology you initially resisted, but now consider essential to your work. Anything ring true for you there, or?
Well, I found myself using AI more than I really probably would have expected myself to, but kind of getting off that AI, bandwagon for a second. I think the other, and I would say use it cautiously as some of the comments are coming in about. But I would say the one that I think is the funniest story where I totally missed the mark is I have my Part 107. I'm a drone pilot. And so the discussion of spray drones was starting to come out, and I sat there all high and mighty going, it'll be years, because the FAA has rules about hazardous material, and spray weighs about 7 pounds per gallon, and you can't be above 55 pounds, so the math doesn't work out. And I literally sat there in a conference in Pasco, Washington, saying that. I get out of the conference, I get on 395, and I look out over on a potato field, and there's a sprayer drone, and I'm like, I was wrong. So I think sometimes it's you go with your gut, and sometimes you're right, and sometimes you're wrong when it comes to technologies, because there's things I would have thought would have been popular in the last 5 years that hasn't been.
Yeah. I'm going to read this question aloud, and Rob, excuse me, Aaron, I think I'll stick with you because I know you kind of mentioned cybersecurity and so forth. So as an IT professional, I always have to warn new users to AI that they do not need to, or excuse me, that they do need to be cautious, as it has become another source of viruses and bad information, either intentionally put into the data set or picked up by accident. So the question is, how do you impress upon your coworkers and students the dangers of AI without discouraging them?
It's like anything else. The tone and how you teach it matters. I would say, Jacqueline, some of the issues that we talk about in my line of work is data security. And I tell growers that, hey, it's great. I obviously use AI a bit, but it's like posting it on your Facebook page. It is an open source, and it's very likely that if you put something proprietary in, your proprietary could get established out. So treat it like a social media is a really strong pressure that I put onto people when it comes to AI about, like, it's not always secure. I didn't know about the viruses thing, so I'm very interested in now looking into that one. That'll be interesting for me to go home and do my curiosity search on. But when it comes to bad information, I think I want to go back to my original thesis, which was, it does not cover you not knowing what you're talking about, even if it means you have to interview manufacturers to make sure you're doing it right. I would rather be wrong instead of just assuming that AI told me right, or ask the wrong question than assume the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Patricia, maybe you can weigh in as well. I think, obviously your interaction with students, anything, how do you strike that right balance there?
Yeah, I'll tell you an example that I told the students, and I said, so we went through the pandemic, right? And that created chaos with a lot of people, and unsettlement and not knowing where to go and what to do. People, we had on campus actually students parking in the parking lots and putting special towers, so that students could have access to connectivity, right? And otherwise they could not connect. But when we talk about technology, I always tell them, what if we were, in a catastrophic situation that, our satellites, go bad and we have no connectivity, nothing. And so what do? Then we are a disabled society because we are relying on technology so much, trying to find the balance, like, for example, everybody, most of the people now, we don't know the phone numbers of everyone, right? I memorize my close contacts, like this, my family and friends, but some people even don't do that, so if you lost your phone went bad, you cannot access to that. If you don't have a computer, how are you going to write your skills, your essays or whatever you have to do? So it's very important, to find that balance. And it's not that we need to be living in panic mode, thinking that a catastrophe will happen and what do we do? But it's like, like our bodies. If we don't exercise, our muscles will go weak, we start having problems. So the same with our brains, I always told the students, instead of, we are in the classroom, you have the instructor in front of you, I come in person. Why do you have to be looking at the computer when I have, my lectures, on a screen, and I'm here to talk to you? You can, see me in person. And I said, like, all the technology goes down, and we have a conversation, let's engage. And I think, that's something that excessive use of technology, could limit our ability to learn, how, when we take handwritten notes, the memory and the brain processes the information in a way that doesn't happen. At least it will take probably several millions, thousands of years for our brains to, acquire the capacity that what we type and see on a screen, is memorized in the same way when we do it by handwriting. So, all those things need to be emphasized and reminded, because it's very easy to depend on technologies for everything that we do in our lives. And so the students need to find that balance.
Yeah, very good. Robin and Aaron, I'm gonna pitch this one to you, because it's kind of, workplace related. Robin, what specific technical skills are you seeing as non-negotiable in your field right now?
Yeah, I think just data literacy, Laura, I would say, and that's a big area, but being able to understand dashboards, interpret analytics, being able to figure out how they help make decisions, or in our case, we'd be looking at engagement trends. Marketing automation, like anything that makes, the marketing process, the sales process easier. I would say those are sort of skills that we should be thinking about. We're small, so we have to be as efficient as possible. So we want to use technical skills to help us be efficient always. We already talked about AI tools. I think those are ones that we need to be thinking about as well. If somebody can also combine storytelling with data, I think you might be a step ahead as well when you talk about non-negotiables. Like, you have technical people and then you have, sort of the non-technical people, but if you can somehow bridge those together, that is maybe not non-negotiable, but it is something that I do think is really important, because you can have a lot of data but don't know what to do with it, or can't make it into a story that makes sense to, and I'll go back to the grower, retailer, customer, who is who I work with, right? So I do think that is a skill set, that is really important. If you can combine the technical with being able to put it all, interpret, translate it, be able to communicate it and use it, boy, I think you're a step ahead, Laura. That's what I would comment.
Yeah. And I have to say again, just being on the journalism media side, strangely enough, again, at least where AI is right now, when we use it for writing and stuff like that, it strangely has almost made me even be a better writer in that, because I feel like I could spot, at least at this early stage, when something was written. There's just a rhythm, there's just something. So I try really hard to emphasize on creative writing and storytelling, to your part, and all those, and I know we haven't talked much about the soft skills that go with upskilling, because this is upskilling with agtech. However, just that beautiful marriage of, like, we've got all this, but all these other things that you bring to the table, and all the other things that you don't, that AI will never or can't do, or all those things. I would be remiss if I didn't, just remind us all just how important that is.
Making it very meaningful and thoughtful to whatever audiences that you are trying to reach. And that AI will not be able to do that, I think, effectively yet. And I say that maybe 5 years from now, we'll be talking about it, a different story, Laura, but for now.
Exactly. So Erin, let me ask you, what's the absolutely must-have specific technical skills right now in your space?
Well, and I agree with Robin, data analytics, knowing how to get those analytics, understanding how to read them, super relevant. And I also agree on the storytelling. I would say one of the top things that when I started interviewing growers here at National Grape that they were asking was, I have 10 years of data and I don't know what to do with it. You know, being able to understand that technical analytics. And I would add also a good understanding of GIS. GIS is on the fundamental level of you know, taking agricultural technology, because agriculture is by its nature geospatially based. So understanding not only what are the common, you know, root files, and if this file didn't come in right, and it's because they don't have the .shp, but they have the other two files. How do you explain that to a grower over the phone? And I hate to say it, I go, shape files are buddies. There needs to be 3 of them and there need to be holding hands, you know, something like that. But also, you know, projections. My field ended up in the middle of the Atlantic. Okay, that's a projection issue. One of the biggest things I have done in my last 2 jobs is when I get introduced to a software, and this is the software we're going to use, I want a test farm. I want a sandbox. I want to make mistakes. And use real data with fake farm names, you know, based off of movie characters or something like that. And I will go in and make mistakes, push buttons, absolutely go in and wreck it, so that when growers come in and they say, gee, the field's not showing up right, but it's showing up in another file, I know that they misnamed the file or something like that, as an example.
Yeah, yeah. So I talked just a few minutes ago about all the free sources of information online, and a couple ladies were kind enough to drop some stuff in the chat. I'm going to read it for those of you that are just listening in right now. So Mara writes, as a technical professional in ag, I learn about AI and use AI every day from many free sources. First, use AI to teach you about AI. So ask ChatGPT or Claude to explain concepts like agentic AI to you. Secondly, I listen to professional podcasts every day, and technical or product management podcasts are amazing. She cites Lenny's podcast, the Product Growth Podcast, Peter Yang. And thirdly, maven.com. And yes, that's maven.com, has hundreds of free lightning lessons, or you can get teasers of AI training free every week. I also have prompts that I now utilize over and over. For example, one for customizing a resume that I have collected and refined over time. And Erin, you mentioned that, pasting the resume and job description there. Megan, thank you. To the above, you can also specify, quote, at an 8th grade level, or, quote, in children's story format if you are really stretching to learn something very foreign. So yeah, let AI know where you're at and what you want to know. And yeah, the prompting is really where it's at. Get that down, or start to bolster your skills on that. And man, it just makes a difference, a huge one. So Erin, I'm going to ask each of you a specific question. Erin, I'll start with you. And ladies, feel free to jump in with some more questions. In fact, take a look if there's one in there. Does anyone can anyone answer the question from Pamela? What are the best sources for Ag CE?
I'll say cooperative extension. And if your extension doesn't do webinars, start going to the states around you that have similar geospatial, you know, Eastern Oregon, now that I'm here in New York, Pennsylvania. So Cornell doesn't do a lot of webinars, but Pennsylvania does a ton of webinars. So finding locations nearby in the cooperative extension, I think, is a good solid one for getting solid information.
Okay, good.
Yeah, as a member of a land-grant university, I echo what Erin just said. You know, we have extension programs embedded in our college at the university level, and those are amazing. You know, those are the bridges that connect the academic world with the community. We listen to the needs. We bring the questions that farmers, growers, ranchers have, and we bring them into, research questions for us to answer. I've been in several academic institutions, and actually the level of connectivity that Oregon State University has with the community in terms of outreach and, extension is amazing, and is, very high quality. It's very dynamic, and it goes both ways, from the community to the university, and the university to the community.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would add to that, even Purdue just in my local area just announced a new AI program that you can take online. So prompting, it was all about prompting. It was, I think is kind of interesting on a land grant. I think associations also provide many opportunities for educational courses or as part of their programming, that they might be having a conference or something, they usually will offer that as well. So I do think associations, in addition to land grants, are very helpful, credible.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a couple questions I want to get to. And I'm just gonna pitch these out to y'all and get some responses. So the first one, for someone that has a brain that naturally picks up on trends in data and can turn dashboards and Excel sheets of data into stories, how do you ensure that comes across in a job application? I know that I have these skills, but I don't specifically have a background in more than Jira when it comes to dashboards and struggle with turning my resume into a story. Any pointers? Any advice on professional certificates that employers are looking for to stand out as someone that knows dashboards?
I kind of want to start on this one because I did just come out of needing to apply for jobs. And I would say two things that when I'm talking to friends who are also going through this, because we're going through a backwash right now in agriculture.
Mhm.
The cover letter is the most underutilized step of applying for a job. And the amount of people who tell me they're not using their cover letter, and I'm sitting there going, no, that's where you tell the story.
Yeah.
The nuts and bolts are going to be in that resume. That cover letter is where you tell about the time you saved the world by finding the one comma that was misplaced and you saved the company $1 million. Those types
Yep.
of stories need to happen in your cover letter. I would say in your resume, that resume should be changing with every single job. I did use AI to go, what are the keywords they're looking for? And I'm putting those keywords in the description. So for instance, Erin worked at the Benton Conservation District, and they want detail oriented and they want people who utilize working with systems. I created a system that allowed for on-job, on-farm data collection in a way that was neat and orderly and succinct. I also created a new program called the Small Farm Education Series, and that's your bullet point. And you put those keywords in that bullet point. But yeah, you could put a little story in there. The bullet point doesn't need to be that you type 55 words per minute or less. Sometimes that bullet point is telling the story about how you've done the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Erin, I like that idea on the cover letter. I hear that all the time as well. I think it's excellent advice. I would also add, in addition to the bullets, there's always sometimes people use on their resume the top kind of a summary of your resume, sort of talking about what they're looking for. I would say make sure you're thinking about what story fits for that particular job that you're applying for, because that could change even on the top, talking about what kind of role you're looking for and incorporate some sort of story. If you're talking about how do I know data, but I also know storytelling, for example, somehow incorporate that into that overarching comments at the top of the resume. I would make sure to incorporate there as well in case they miss the cover letter. But I think the cover letter is very important as well. Great suggestion, Erin. I agree.
Yeah, and that's where, again, the kind of free form thing, telling a little bit about your soft skills or something extra that you bring to the table, or who you are as a person, what you value, those kind of things. I agree. Yeah, don't pass up that cover letter.
To echo everything said, I was once told that the cover letter should be like the 5-minute elevator speech, so it's your first, it's like your presentation card, right? It's something fast that, and concise that people will catch, the search committee or whoever is the hiring authority, oh, I like this person, I want to learn more about her or his or whatever, but so that's always very important.
Yeah, yeah. So another question, and this is a nice segue into kind of the last 10, 15 minutes of our program, kind of the future thing. So in the spirit of Wayne Gretzky, and y'all know Wayne Gretzky, right? Hockey player. Where is the ag tech puck going in each of your fields?
I guess I'll
Eric.
start. Yeah, told you you're gonna need to find a way to shut me up, Laura. I think one of the top things that I've seen in the last couple, I would even say 6 months, talking with growers, because that's one of the first things I did when I came to this role was interviewed growers, what they were looking for. I think one of the places that the ag tech puck needs to go to, or is probably going towards, is one, de-siloing data. So it used to be that the manufacturers, if you have a case, combine, it's not going to talk to your John Deere sprayer, which isn't going to talk to your AGCO tractor. They are getting away from that, but just learning how to de-silo data and put it together and make that cohesive story. The other things, and I would say, is we need to be talking about data security. We need to be talking about and teaching growers data security. We need to be talking, we mentioned connectivity earlier. That's on top there too of things that we need to talk about, is how are we going to be secure in our data and making sure that that data isn't going to get, if I use, the proprietary AI, how am I sure that data is not going to go and get leaked somewhere? And the final thing is traceability. More consumers are wanting to know the story about where their food came from. It's not enough that you pick up a head of lettuce. You want to know that that lettuce was grown under whatever the bullet points of your concerns are. And that's one of the things I think will happen in the future, is food traceability, and knowing that, if you've ever been to the Five Guys burger place, they always put up on the whiteboard where those potatoes came from that day. And I guarantee you, not all the potatoes came from that, but just even that management of that information and knowing where food's coming from and where it was grown, and in case of any number of reasons, I think traceability will be important.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to mention to everyone, if you haven't seen it, our friend Nancy was kind enough to drop in the chat a link to, she says the University of Wisconsin just had an AI in agriculture webinar, and that was today. So there's a link in there in the chat for y'all. If you're so inclined, that's probably a good one, no doubt. So I guess, the couple minutes that we have left, 10 minutes or so, just kind of want to look ahead a bit. I know, I mean, gosh, again, looking back 18 months, I didn't imagine where we'd be now. So looking ahead, a couple, 3 years, maybe 5 years, where do you think this is all going, in particularly with ag? Any thoughts on that, Erin?
Yeah, I think I already answered that question with my last response, traceability and data security and data de-siloing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's also one challenge, that with the shortage of employees to perform certain tasks, in the ag field, we are depending more on automated, harvesters, and processors. So, broadband is very important. So people sometimes they are, you talk to farmers, ranchers, that they are interested in new technologies. And if you ever gone to the World Ag Expo in Tulare, California, that's the mecca for seeing, the most up-to-date technologies for agriculture. And, people, welcome them. But, sometimes, the question is, I bring it to my ranch or my farm, I don't have connectivity. So, I don't have, solar panels to charge the equipment, or, it will cost more money. So I think we're at the point that, we really need to think of how we are going to subsidize, that technology, and how are we going to make it accessible to everyone. And I think that's, an answer for many different people at many different levels to answer. But I think that that's one of the major barriers. It's not people not being interested in learning the technology or using it to replace the lack of workforce, but how is it going to happen? What kind of support there is out there?
Yeah, yeah.
I would add, Laura, too, we haven't really talked about it today, but robotics and automation have got to be a part of this future look. We're seeing, I mean, Patricia just mentioned, labor, that is a challenge in ag, robotics, more automation, that kind of thing. That it does create other challenges, but I do think that is going to be part of our future. I think connectivity, we talked about that. And Patricia, I live in an area where connectivity is difficult. So I know what you're saying there. I think that's important, that we still have a lot of areas that is a challenge. Agentic AI, obviously, how we're going to be able to make workflow work better, make decisions faster, recommendations for farmers, that kind of thing faster. We will see more of that, I think, over the next few years. And I think those are things that professionals could be thinking about now. Of course, they'll all change, but I think that's, those are some areas to think about.
Yeah, I saw an article this morning, and I didn't even, I wasn't able to finish it, but Sam Altman of OpenAI they had a dev day this week, and he was talking with Johnny Ivey, and they were talking about kind of like an operating system, if you will, like computing that's going to reside within GPT. I couldn't even like get my pea brain around that. What does that even look like? So I think it's almost like folly to imagine and think about what could possibly be around the corner in a year, let alone 5 years. However, I think the one last thing I want to explore with you ladies, and Robin, I think maybe I'll start with you, like particularly where you sit in this space. Folks coming in, applying for things, and what you're hearing out there. Where are the skill gaps still with ag tech, or what's kind of, and then kind of part two to that question, if somebody is super remote or they don't have the resource. I mean, I know we talked a lot about what's online, but are there ways that maybe even employers are like, look, we recognize that you're not, up to snuff here, for instance. We have this program that, all else checks out. Hey, let's get you in here. Let's, skill up. But like, where are the gaps, and how do we bridge those gaps?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, just talking about, we see, when we're looking at marketing, for example, I'll talk about a couple areas in marketing. You're going to see somebody who are strong communicators, but then don't have the technical experience. And then you've got those who are the technical experience, but just aren't able to tell a compelling story. So somewhere in there, that sweet spot is being that translator. I would say I'm going to emphasize maybe something a little bit different here too, Laura, which is around soft skills. I think we can't forget the soft skills around curiosity, adaptability, problem solving, because we talked earlier about there's so many options for technology, but you have to work through those technologies to figure out what ones will solve your problem best. And so you do have to employ a strong problem solving skill set. Lifelong learning, we hear that a lot. I do think, being curious, doing this continuous learning it should be part of what you do. I know many people do that, and it's hard to stay focused on that. Business acumen, I would say, is another area that I find you might have technical skills, but if you don't know how a P&L statement comes together, it's going to be, eventually that might be something you're going to need to get to the next level. I'm thinking about mid-career people in particular. You've got the technical expertise, you've got the agronomic experience, you've people managed. But if you don't know or have an understanding of how your business makes money and that P&L statement, I do think you will lag a little bit in getting to that next level. I think it's possible anyway. So I do think understanding ROI, input costs, how the tools impact, that kind of thing. And then finally, I would say, project management skills are important. Leadership, coaching, that kind of thing, leading teams, those kinds of spaces are really still important to marry up with the technical skills. I think you still need to be working on that professional development.
Yeah.
And I think just mentoring, reaching out to people, understanding, just getting to know people, learning other people's journeys, taking time to really find a mentor, understand. I do also want to mention, Laura, I think sometimes looking outside of ag, we can learn a lot, right? Let's get out of our ag world for a minute and think about and see how technology is being employed in other industries. And I think that could shape some of the work that we're doing, and we haven't even really thought about it.
Yeah, great. Well said, Robin. Thank you. I guess I'll just end with Erin and Patricia both. I mean, are there any final thoughts, something we didn't cover, anything on the skills gap? Erin?
I'll piggyback on one of Robin's things real quick, and she was talking about developing those soft skills and looking outside of the ag business. Don't forget that what you do on your free time is as important as what you do at work. So if they're looking for people management skills and you haven't managed anybody at work, but you managed a 4-H club, happy National 4-H Week, by the way. If you've managed kids at a 4-H club, that counts. And in fact, I did that in a resume. They're like, or on a job, interview. They're like, have you managed people? No, it's worse. I've managed teenagers and their parents. And the other side of that is if you've got a close circle of people that maybe you met at, the Tech Hub as an example, and that Laura knows autonomy and Robin knows AI and Patricia really knows rate controllers, get into a little after work party on Zoom and maybe make a 15-minute presentation, and everybody brings their favorite bottle of Welch's sparkling cider, and we all sit down and we all listen to each other for about 15 minutes, and we kind of get caught up to that level. That's another way of thinking outside the box, especially if you're the only person in a region. Start looking outside those regions and doing things virtually and learning the world that you may not know well.
Yeah, great advice. And Patricia, I'll give you the last word. Any final thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, I would say, very important as an educator, data literacy, it's like how to interpret, analyze data, I think is really basic these days and vital for knowing what is, true information or wrong information. Anyone can go to a web page and, Wikipedia filled up a page with information that if you don't have the background, you would not be able to recognize if it's true or false. Right. And communication and collaboration. I think those are also vital skills that we need to, keep current, and they will all help in preparing people with, advancing and, new technologies, because communication, these days, like I said, everybody's hooked up to the telephone and cell phone and forgets to talk with people and face to face. Collaborate, recognizing that we all have expertise in one area or more, but we are not experts of all. So collaboration, has make me grow as a professional in my career and has enriched my personal life. So I think that's very important. And then through, living in a world that change happens by the second, adaptability and leadership, I think, are very important. As agricultural leaders, we know the challenges that happen, with climate, with the financial world, trades. And so there are things that we cannot predict, and we need to react and have that knowledge right there to make, wise decisions. So technology is great, and will continue to grow. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we focus on human-centered skills, that are adaptable in the developing, field that we have in terms of increased technology and AI in general.
Yeah. Words of wisdom there. Thank you, Patricia and Aaron and Robin. Really do appreciate your insights today. And thank you again for being ambassadors for our Women in Ag Tech group. Thank you, of course, to our 2025 Women in Ag Tech signature sponsor, Corteva AgriScience. Thank you very much. And in addition, thank you to Agri Access and Fakery Drinker. If you want more information, you can contact our colleague, Chris Burnell. She is looking for sponsors for 2026. And speaking of 2026, we will be co-locating our next Women in Ag Tech meeting in Glendale, Arizona on January 12th, co-located with our Vision Conference. You can check out womeninagtech.com. We have bios and profiles on these ladies, Robin, Aaron, and Patricia, as well as our other ambassadors. And then if you haven't already, join our WiAT LinkedIn group. We have a private group. That's the link right there. We also have a showcase group. Our WiAT tip of the cap to our colleague Lauren. She has built up our LinkedIn groups, both our showcase group and our private group. So things are rolling along. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, ladies, for your time. And we will see you soon.